warm welcome to another episode of the Monday Morning Learning Podcast. Excited to have Sanjay Devudu today as part of my podcast. Very warm welcome to you, Sanjay. Heard so much from Praveen and Pramod. Any welcome words before I start off with your intro?
Thank you so much, Ravikant. An absolute pleasure to be here. An honor to, have been invited. Yes, it's been an amazing journey with both these exalted individuals that you mentioned, good friends and great colleagues for many years, and we have learned so much from each other. And it's like you say it's never about I; it's all about we in this
Yes,
world,
absolutely.
and that's how the relationship has been with both Praveen and Pramod. It's been a pleasant journey, and I have heard so much about you too. So it's a great pleasure to connect with you
Sure.
and be here on this platform.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sanjay. So, for my audience, Sanjay is an experienced HR and OD professional, advisor, consultant, executive coach, mentor, and talent catalyst. He's a co founder and managing partner for Heritage People Practices, director, senior consultant for Nivritti Associates, has been a business partner for Crossover Leadership Partners earlier, has worked as the head business HR for Ashok Leyland, also managed their talent management earlier. He's been the talent development head for Milan, uh, partner people practices consulting, head professional and leadership learning services, Satyam School of Leadership. Uh, he's been the head learning and development Hyderabad Center for Dell, head phone banking group Hyderabad ICICI, and I think started off his career at G Capital International Services as operating leader, customer service operations. So Sanjay, so much we have heard from you. For the sake of the audience, let me actually go ahead and look at the themes that we are looking at. Again, we're looking at four themes for this podcast, Sanjay. The first one is on the insights for young L&D professionals and HR management grads. We'll have a couple of questions on those. And we'll move to performance consulting, future of learning, layoffs, and how do we prepare for layoffs and influencers part of the podcast. So I'll choose the first one, Sanjay. Uh, and typically I talk about young L&D professionals because that's my background. I take advantage of that. What are the top three corporate lessons which help you thrive in your career, Sanjay? That's the first one for you.
Great, thank you so much. And that's such an important question. I wouldn't say for this era, but for all eras, honestly
Absolutely.
speaking, right? And I think the three key things which have really helped me is understanding the business. I think one of the biggest mistakes that I have seen people
Mm,
make, and probably I was also part of that in the early phases of my career,
mm,
is to look at our roles in a silo
right.
and say, if I do what I need to do, what I've been asked to do, I
Mm,
think that is good enough.
yeah.
Yeah, probably to keep my job. But then, how do I thrive? How do I grow
Yeah.
as a professional?
Absolutely.
Understanding the business, I think, is one of the key factors.
Sure.
And what I mean by understanding the business is, again, not about any line of business that I might have been associated with, but the entire organization as a whole.
Right.
I think
Yes.
that's one key metric that is required for growth.
Sure.
Second is understanding and managing stakeholders. That's
Yes.
the other mistake we make.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm,
usually we tend to say one size fits all,
mm,
and we say we have a cookie cutter approach of a list of things that we need to do, and we go do that, try and do that with everyone. But we need to understand that, after all, every individual, every manager, leader is, or every employee for that matter, is a human being,
yeah.
and each one has a unique style depending on the role, the responsibility, the situation, the background, the environment, etc., etc. So many factors,
Yes.
and adapting to that style,
Mm,
adapting to the situation, adapting to the context
yeah.
is very important. So understanding stakeholder has been my second key thriving
Mm,
factor, or
yeah.
factor to thrive, if I may.
Sure.
And third is, as a learning professional, especially also as a HR and learning professional, making learning contextual.
Yeah. Yes.
Again, a cookie cutter approach
Mm,
stating we have a list of 15 programs, like it or not, this is what we will do, or
yeah.
this is what we have to offer, take it or leave it,
Right.
is those days are gone. Yeah, probably they did work probably
Mm,
15, 20 years ago, but not
mm,
anymore.
yeah.
So, keeping in line with the evolving business dynamics,
Yeah.
keeping in line with evolving generational trends
Yes.
of focus of patience or lack of it, as I may say, and the need in which the focus has to be addressed
Yes.
are three things. So, making learning contextual and need based
Yeah.
are three key things which we need to keep evolving as we grow.
Absolutely.
So, that is how I would look at it.
Absolutely, Sanjay. I think touching upon the Gen Z and millennials, Sanjay, I just wanted to take your thoughts on that. I mean, while working with both these generations, like Gen Z in 2000s and millennials who 85 to 95 kind of era, who work in the same teams, both of them actually work in the same teams.
Correct.
What should be a learning consultant's approach during the learning needs gathering phase, given the two generations have different aspirations and are wired very differently? What's your thought on that?
So, the era in which both of them, both these groups of people have grown, are completely different.
Right.
And unlike from my era, dinosaur era as I call it, ours was a very steady, slow learning curve and change that was happening. But that's
Yes.
not the case in the last 15, 20 years.
True.
It's just jumping as technology has changed, as environments have changed, as the world, more of globalization has happened. The
Yeah.
opportunity for the younger generation to have access to more resources, the amount of social media exposure, media
Yes.
exposure in general,
Yeah.
everything, the internet has exploded. So
Yes.
therefore, how do we cater to that? So my approach would probably be to say, for the Gen Z, for the millennials, etc., the approach would be to say short, bite-sized learning which matches their attention span,
Yes.
which is probably as high as a rat's eye, and how do you keep them engaged?
Yeah.
It's not about theoretical presentations or content just in the form of text, etc., simulations, gamification, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Short, bite-sized learning is what I would, advocate.
Sure.
For the slightly older generation, unfortunately, we already have to call them older generation. It's a little bit more nuanced,
Mm.
because they probably grew up without the help of all this technology. So they're adapting to a lot of these dynamic changes which are happening. So how do you bridge
Yes.
those? Encourage them to, for example, whatever said and done. Sorry if
Mm.
I'm going to be candid here. Whatever said
Sure.
and done, e-learning is still a, I would say, nascent industry, because people's focus from the older generation is not there.
True.
We're all used to that instructor led, in person, face to face
Yeah.
kind of a audience that we have catered to.
Yes.
And so a nice hybrid between the two,
Yeah.
letting them know that we are there for you to support, but
Yeah.
at the same time, we can't spend all the time, neither do you have the time to spend in the classroom.
Yeah.
Here is a set of technology enabled learning programs or initiatives that you can go through at your own pace. So
Yes.
how you communicate
Yeah.
this is as equally important as what is it that you want to communicate. I think
Absolutely.
those would be the approaches in which trying to understand their
Great.
needs and addressing them.
Absolutely, Sanjay. Thank you. Thank you so much on that. A lot of young L&D professionals who are going to listen to this podcast, how would you advise them to keep themselves updated? I had a word with Praveen and Pramod. Each one had a different take altogether. Thought process is some of us professionals, right, have gone through a lot of certification programs in L&D of different bodies across the world. Is that one approach that we need to take to keep ourselves updated, or is it just experience? So, what would you advise them?
I think it's a combination of both. My only advice or my key advice would be is, and I get a lot of youngsters and mid-level professionals who reach out to me for advice or just help or suggestions or recommendations.
Yeah.
And the first thing they ask me is about, I think it will help if I do this certification, right? So my sincere and humble submission would be to say, great to have that certification. But if you think you're going to apply whatever you learned in that certification verbatim into the real world, it's
Mm.
not going to work. You'll be surprised, right?
Yes.
The
Yes.
environment in the real world is different to what is taught in theory.
Yes. Absolutely.
How do you take that knowledge, adapt it to the real time environment, and be
Yes.
able to apply it? I think that is key.
Absolutely.
Paper certifications, paper degrees, very welcome, no
Yes.
doubt. It'll probably strengthen your resume if somebody is looking at it.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, they are still going to ask you questions around that, and your ability to answer those questions and make sense
Yes.
for your work environment is going to be key. So that's
Absolutely.
my first recommendation to the youngsters.
Sure.
Second is, I go back to point one I mentioned:
Hmm.
understand your environment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
you're not here. For example, when I joined one of my earlier organizations,
Hmm.
I was just getting to know, the environment, and talking to my team and say what's going on and what are all the things that we do, etc.
Hmm.
Um, they had a very simple answer. All my questions were answered in 5 minutes.
Hmm.
Because they just came up with a list of programs and say, we keep running these programs. This is technical, this is behavioral. We have this list of programs. We keep
Yeah.
going around asking everybody what programs you want every month, and we keep delivering them.
Uh,
I said, how has it made a difference? Have
hmm.
you been able to attract audiences to your program? Right?
Yes.
And have we had a chance to follow up on whether it was useful? Whom did we talk to, etc.? So
Yeah.
the next obvious answer was that yes, yeah, we take a feedback at the end of each session.
Yes.
So that's
Hmm.
a very standard approach. I didn't blame them because that's what they were exposed to.
Right.
And then, changing that perspective,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? And saying, this is not your job.
Hmm.
This is only part of your job.
Yeah.
What is it that you're doing to the business? How
Hmm.
are you impacting the business? They
Hmm.
say. So then my next set of questions to them was, so it was a manufacturing organization. So I said, which plants manufacture what products? Is there
Hmm.
a differentiation? Or
Yeah.
do all of them do everything?
Yeah.
Then if yes, our approach has to be different.
Yes.
So they had no answers, right?
Hmm.
I said, which part of the organization has more challenges that you've been hearing?
Yeah.
Is it a corporate, or is it one of the plants or all the plants? If yes, what cadre of employees, etc.
Yeah.
So it was an eye opener for them, in the sense that these are strange questions coming from this guy. We have this list of programs, we just need to go deliver.
Yeah.
And so then we started going around, talking to plant heads, talking to business managers,
Hmm.
and they said, well, honestly, nobody has ever asked this question, but yes, here is a laundry list of things that we are facing challenges with.
Okay.
I said, that's what we need to address.
Yeah.
So, understanding the business, talking to your key stakeholders, first of all, knowing who your key stakeholders are
Yeah.
and understanding what their challenges are. I think that
Yes.
is a key piece of advice I would give to all the young, aspiring learning and development professionals.
Great, Sanjay. Great inputs there. So moving to theme two, future of learning. So one of the questions I always had, and I keep asking professionals, how do we actually gather learning needs? I mean, the different approaches that different people have. So that's question number one. How do we actually gather learning needs from business? Number one, and how do we effectively diagnose performance problems and develop solutions that have again measurable impact on business results? So two-part question, Sanjay, for you.
Great. So thank you. So see, I think training needs, once again, just because we have a learning management system or we have a tool to capture data,
Yeah.
rolling out a survey and asking people to fill it is the easiest thing to do.
Yeah.
But then are your ears on the ground?
Hmm.
Are
Hmm.
your eyes on the ground of
Yes.
what's happening?
Yes.
You don't need to really even begin to ask questions. Before you begin to ask questions, you just need to look around.
Yes.
You see the morale of people,
Yeah.
there is a problem if it is low.
Hmm.
You hear conversations which are happening around the coffee
Yes.
machine,
Yes.
or lunch rooms, or in meetings, the energy that people bring out in meetings.
Yeah.
Yes. So being part of those informal forums
Hmm.
is my first real taste of the world,
Yes.
to say
Absolutely.
things look very good or things are not looking good,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Using that information is where constant conversations with managers and leaders needs to happen.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if there is a manager or leader who says, hey, you know what, everything is hunky dory, pink
Hmm.
and rosy,
Hmm.
then you bring out these points to say, but this is what I've been hearing or
Hmm.
observing.
Hmm.
What's your take on it?
Yeah.
You can probably, it's an eye opener for them,
Absolutely.
because managers and leaders, unfortunately, don't seem to be having that kind of empathy or
Hmm.
time to invest in people.
Yeah.
We're running after numbers.
Yes.
It's perfectly normal for a business house.
Right.
But that's the key balance that we need to bring in.
Hmm.
So uh, my way of looking at it is constantly talk to leaders
Yes.
and managers, understand whether they know about their team first of all. If not,
Yes.
be that shoulder
Hmm.
which can provide that support to them and say, but this is what I've been hearing.
Yeah.
Can we, do you think it's a problem? Can we address that?
Hmm.
Or if something is going very good, why
Hmm.
don't we build on it and take it to the next level?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And gather those needs
Hmm.
from the
Hmm.
leadership level. And
Yes.
then talk to the different teams, have a lot of focus groups. I think
Hmm.
those conversations are so key, rather than saying it's a technology world, we don't have the time,
Yeah.
and here is a tool, fill it in, we'll do it for you.
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
remember that old Hero Honda had fill it, shut it, forget it. Now we are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Fill it, download it, forget it. It's not
But
going to work anymore.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I heard, I mean, Shivaji was part of previous podcast as well. So he
Right.
was sharing the example of a doctor. Like people go to the doctor, they share the symptoms. They don't tell them that I need a paracetamol.
Correct.
What I've observed, my own experience is when I work with LOB heads, they say, Ravi, we need communication skills training. We need that particular trainer. They're
Exactly.
very specific.
Exactly.
So I really wonder that, learning leaders, right? I think they should put their foot down saying that, tell me the learning need or the problem that you're facing rather than the solution itself. Yeah. So I faced a lot of
Yes.
such issues while I was a learning partner for both technology and ops learning partners.
I can well relate to that. Saying sometimes training is not even the answer.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's something else entirely. It is
True.
just a conversation with a group of people or an individual that can change things, or
Yeah.
it could be a coaching conversation.
Right.
It's not just a training program that is the panacea for all troubles like
Absolutely.
this, right? And another instance I remember is having a conversation with a team member, saying, okay, this particular team is looking for presentation skills.
Hmm.
I said, okay, great. But what is their purpose?
Hmm.
Why are they suddenly feeling the need for presentation skills?
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay. So the answer was very interesting,
Hmm.
because they have run out of all other programs, they've completed it.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Hmm.
my question to so I said, okay, let's get into a conversation with them. So we
Hmm.
got onto a conversation with the team manager
Hmm.
and said, how many interactions do you have with the outside world or within internal stakeholders?
Yeah.
No, we hardly have anything. We just have to send out reports and we are done.
Yeah.
So where is the question of presentation skills?
Hmm.
That blankness, that void said it all. So I
Yes.
said, we can still do it, but please have an objective. There is a purpose.
Yeah.
Don't do things for the sake of doing it. I think
Absolutely.
that those conversations, once again, are very, very important.
No, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
sorry, you had a second part to that question,
Yeah.
which
Second
I,
part was on how to effectively diagnose performance problems and develop solutions that have a measurable impact on business results.
yes. So again, um, feedback from managers has become such a valuable commodity, priceless commodity,
Yeah.
that it's become rare. Right? So feedback is generally, unfortunately,
Yeah.
gone into a lot of perception based or recency effect based mode, right?
Yeah.
Due to which performance tends to drop
Mm.
or tends to pick up depending on what is the feedback all about. I
Yes.
start from there.
Mm.
Reason being, um, what is it that is affecting the performance positively or negatively,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And that positive effect, how can we carry it forward to the rest of the team or rest of the unit or rest of the organization?
Yes.
If it is negative, it could well be possible that it is a personal situation,
Mm.
or the manager, or the business, or the environment. So understanding that root cause is very, very critical.
Absolutely.
Very recently, I was having a chat with someone who wanted some help, and said, just need a conversation. So I said, yeah, sure, let's go ahead. What's
Yeah.
your problem? So he mentioned a lot of issues that he's facing, related, work related, unable to focus, is that. So I said, kept asking questions about, do you think it is possibly the nature of the project that you're working on which is not exciting you?
Mm.
Could it be possible that you don't have any team members, you're an individual contributor? Is that something which is impacting? And
Mm.
if yes, and so on and so forth. We're having a conversation. Ultimately, after 45 minutes, it turned out
Mm.
that the patchy connectivity issue that he was having working from home with his internet service provider was
Ah,
leading to all these thought processes. So there was no training involved there. Right?
right, right.
So where is the performance issue coming in?
Yeah,
Unrelated to work.
absolutely.
So attacking that root cause. So I said, is that something then you want to address?
Yes,
Change your provider and see if it's making a difference. And
yes.
it's been about a month, and last Thursday or so I received a message stating, Chief, things looking good, thank you, we'll talk soon. I said,
Hmm,
that's all I needed to hear.
absolutely.
And I'm no magician here. You need to realize yourself what's happening. But as learning professionals, I think it's important for us to understand that conversation and lead it in a manner which gives us the root cause. And
Absolutely.
needless to say, put measures in place. The other problem is improper goal setting.
Right.
I think that also impacts a lot of performance. Right?
Hmm, hmm.
You don't know, you don't give clarity on what is it that you're expected to achieve,
Yes,
and you're just doing things on a day-to-day basis. So
yes.
even small goals, but setting those deadlines, setting those goals, and keep tweaking them as they go along. Only upon achieving a
Right.
certain milestone, having those
Yes.
milestones, I think makes a lot of difference. I
Right.
hope that made sense.
Oh, absolutely, Sanjay. Thank you so much for that. So moving on to the topic which everyone talking about across the world, the layoffs and preparation for layoffs. We've been seeing post-COVID, a lot of organizations, the larger ones, smaller ones, startups, laying off people. And I heard from even Shivayu that back in 2006, 2007, when every consultant was actually recommending all the organizations to lay off. I mean, they as an organization stood strong, saying that it's not needed. But a lot of companies are laying off. Sanjay, we all know that. So, and there's no control for any one of us. I mean, we don't have control tomorrow. We can be laid off. How is it that we can be prepared for a layoff? That's question number one. And for experienced professionals who keep thinking even now that, okay, my previous year's performance is great, my rating is good, my manager is okay, but they're not even thinking that a layoff might actually happen. So how do they actually bounce back in case they're laid off? So these are a couple of questions for you. Uh,
Sure. So I think, look, Ravi, I think the reality is here staring at us in the face for a few years now.
yes.
Like in the Western world, it has impacted us also.
Yeah.
But if I refer only to India, but that's a global phenomenon
Yeah.
where layoffs are the norm. Unfortunately, and I'm being candid here, organizations are focusing more on the businesses, on the business and the numbers and the bottom lines.
Yes.
And people have become just resources. You're
Yes.
an employee number
Yeah.
and a collective set of numbers, right? So when that happens, I think people need to be committed to their job, but not fall in love with their company. I'm very candid about that,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And don't depend on your manager for everything.
Hmm.
How are you keeping yourself relevant
Hmm.
in not just by your performance, but relevant to the industry trend?
Yeah.
What are you doing to learn and ask for challenges to
Hmm.
take on different roles?
Yes.
You can't make yourself indispensable to a company anymore, because irrespective of what you do, the company, there are situations where organizations lay off, right?
Yeah.
Even the best of people.
Yeah.
So how do you keep yourself relevant
Yes.
to that, right? And um, organizations, I'm glad to hear that, during Shubhayu's talk, he did mention that they stood strong. There are very few organizations like that.
True. Yeah.
Even there, I would say, don't take things for granted.
Yes.
Okay? Getting into that comfort zone of saying, I think I know everything and I've arrived and my manager will take care of me. That's the
Yeah.
biggest problem we have today.
Yes.
You need to move out of that mindset.
Hmm.
uh, Keep learning, keep relearning, unlearning, and be in tune with the trend of what the industry and what the market is all about.
Right.
Having a view of what's going around us in the corporate world is also very important. Okay.
Absolutely.
Last but not the least, stop following the herd mindset.
Yes.
A set of my classmates from the same batch
Hmm.
did take an action X. So
Yeah.
therefore, I think it is the right action. I will also take action X.
Yes.
If you're happy where you are, if you are doing well,
Hmm.
and but you're keeping learning, and the organization is respecting that,
Yeah.
don't get into the comfort zone or don't follow the herd. You
Yes.
create your own path. I
Absolutely.
think that is very, very key to keep ourselves relevant in today's day and age.
Sure.
That's one part. For experienced professionals, again, generationally, things are changing,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
The way I look at it is probably Gen X and Gen Y at the age of 45, maybe
Yeah.
reaching a vice president level was considered having done very well.
Yeah.
And now you suddenly see somebody, something 29 something becoming vice presidents and senior vice presidents. It's a
Yeah.
generational shift.
Yes.
And it's not that it is diluted, it's just that the generation has become smarter.
Absolutely. Yes.
So, how do you use your experience as an
Mm.
experienced professional
Yeah.
to be able to become a mentor to them or a guide to them? Keep
Yes.
yourself relevant to their generation rather than expecting them to adapt to the older generation
Absolutely. Yeah.
is extremely important. One.
Yes.
Two, just because one has been in an organization for 10, and longevity in an organization is no more the 25, 35, 40 years, those days are gone, right?
Yes.
By and large they're
Yeah.
gone. 3, 4, 5 years is considered, oh, been there for a very long time.
Mm. Mm.
So
Yes.
in that scenario, how is it that you are keeping track of what's happening around you, how the
Yes.
industry has changed, and how are you keeping yourself relevant to that industry? That
Absolutely.
relevance to changing times,
Mm.
unlearn, relearn,
Yes.
and be relevant is key.
Absolutely.
That's what I would say. And
Absolutely.
also, one last thing, probably say there is this, and this is from my personal experience, I can say,
Sure.
been in the IT industry for a long time,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
At somewhere, I wanted to take the risk and say, I've had enough of IT or
Mm.
ITes.
Yeah.
So, if what happens when the IT industry gets into a troublesome state, if at all, right?
Yeah.
And we are seeing that reality now,
Yeah.
is where I consciously was looking at saying, I need to move out of IT, look at manufacturing. Then the
Yes.
question came up to say, will somebody from manufacturing accept you?
Yeah.
Well, that's a risk we need to take. And how
Absolutely.
will you do? And I actually jumped
Mm.
from the services sector to the manufacturing sector.
Yeah.
And Touchwood did decently well for myself. And
Yes.
now I have a much larger avenue of
Yes.
opportunities
Yes.
rather than just, of course, now consulting is a different world, but still, I
Yeah.
had a larger avenue of opportunities which were open to me rather than sticking to one sector. So that
Absolutely.
risk, calculated risk, informed risk is very important to take.
Absolutely. Great insights, Sanjay. Great insights. So coming to the last theme, Sanjay, who had the most influence on you professionally and also personally, Sanjay?
Oh, wow. Okay. Um, mm, if I have to think off the cuff, the first two people that come to mind, both as a combination of professional and personal, my mom,
Mm.
who's unfortunately no more, and one of my bosses who was reporting to in an earlier organization.
Mm.
Again, unfortunately no more.
Right.
But as a combination of professional and personal,
Mm.
what I learned from them is patience,
Mm.
empathy,
Mm.
right? Trust building,
Yeah.
so important, humility,
Right.
and equanimity in any situation.
Lovely. Yeah.
Some of the things that have stayed with me and built me
Mm.
as a person. And
Yes.
therefore, those two names come together. I really had a tough time coping with their passing at
Lovely.
different times, of course, but
Mm.
because that was the impact that they had on my life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great, 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 Sanjay. So, in terms of this podcast, Sanjay, we looked at your insights for young L&D professionals. You had a lot of them, so I'm pretty sure my audience would love listening to your podcast very soon. And your take on performances consulting. How do we actually? What's the approach towards learning needs and the future of learning? A unique take on layoffs and how to be prepared for layoffs and influencers. So we actually covered a few more questions which I asked, which were not part of the questionnaire as such, but with your experience, you had lovely answers. So thanks so much for your time, Sanjay. And I will look forward to. I'll give you a bit of maybe a 3 months or 6 months kind of gap, but I really want to come back to you again with a pertinent topic, and we'll deal with it in case you're okay with that, Sanjay.
Thank you so much. Absolute privilege and honor to have been here and invited Ravikant. It was lovely speaking, and I hope it makes sense to a lot of our younger professionals. And thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Sanjay.